How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. I've done a handful of videos talking about how rare Bitcoin is, how hard it will be to get your hands on a Bitcoin, a tenth of a Bitcoin, a hundredth of a Bitcoin years down the line, how rare it will become. Today, I want to do something a little bit different. We'll be talking about that because that's just so imperative for what the topic is. But a lot of people want to know, what's Bitcoin going to be doing in 20 years, in 40 years? What's going to happen after the last Bitcoin's mined? How does that all work? And how does it contribute to what people think about it today, right? If in 20 years, 2043 is coming around and we're wondering if Bitcoin's still going to be around, right? That might be priced into the market cap right now. That might be priced into the market cap in 20 years. You might have to change what you buy when you sell, depending on what Bitcoin's going to be doing. Now, of course, I'm not a time traveler. I can't see the future, but I do know what will happen in 117 years when the last Bitcoin's mined. We can already see what's kind of happening now, which gives us a huge indication as to what's happening in the future. And like, some of these numbers are nuts. You just don't get it unless you look into it, unless you study this kind of stuff. People just have no idea what's going to happen with Bitcoin. And it is crazy how hard it will be to get your hands on any Bitcoin in the future. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on that bell notification. It's right next to the subscribe button, so that way you can see future videos just like this one. There's also a link down there to Margex in case you want to trade cryptocurrency. You can trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin. You can now trade Caspa on the app. There's no VPN, there's no KYC. So definitely check that out. There's also a link down there to Blowfin, where we have a big giveaway going right now. All you have to do is sign up, start trading, and you can get some USDT just for doing that. We're also going to run one for Margex. If you haven't signed up with both of those, I would highly suggest doing that. Now, people want to know what's going to happen to Bitcoin, right? They look at Bitcoin dominance day to day. They look at the price of Bitcoin. They understand what it is, how to send it, but they don't know what's going to happen in the future. They don't know if it's going to be around in 100 years. They don't know some of the stuff that they don't know, right? That's just how it works. First, I think we need to cover a couple things. The demand for Bitcoin is insane right now. Not just from institutions, not people just buying, but like the demand in terms of the number of transactions is nuts. A lot of people don't understand how many transactions are being put on Bitcoin right now. There are nearly 300,000 unconfirmed transactions at this moment. They're just waiting on the mempool. So basically, there's only so many transactions that can go through every minute. When all chains are congested, they charge more. And right now, you can pay more for a high priority fee. You can pay $9.15 or no priority, $2. Now, I've seen higher transaction fees even than that recently. So people have to pay extra if they want their transaction to go through. The reason for this is because of ordinals. The latest wave of Bitcoin ordinal inscriptions has resulted in elevated transaction fees for all network users, but some believe they are here to stay. Right now, they say in the article $37, $38. You can go find this. For example, on Y charts, it shows $38.43. And this is what it historically costs, like $1, $2 in the bear market. Even just back in September, it was $1. Even back in October, $1.50, now spiking up to $38. Now, some people talk about Lightning Network. Lightning Network's not perfect, but when you send larger amounts of money, a lot of people will want to use Bitcoin specifically instead of the Lightning Network. Now, these fees account for a decent amount of miners' total revenue. This is back from November 6th, and this is when we had still a lot of congestion, but it was around 123,000 unconfirmed transactions. It accounted for these transaction fees accounted for 8.5% of the miners' revenue. So keep in mind, years down the line, right? 2140 is the time that the last bit of Bitcoin gets mined. There will still be fees, right? If you want your transaction processed, you'll pay a fee. Now, right now, the Bitcoin sales market is nuts. Bitcoin conquers the NFT market with inscriptions and ordinals, recording 672 million in sales the last 30 days, overcoming Ethereum, which was nearly half that of Bitcoin, about 383 million. Bitcoin's been blowing up. Bitcoin ordinals have been blowing up. There are less buyers overall, 43,000 versus 92,000, but they're paying a lot more per each item. So keep that in mind. When all the Bitcoin's mined, we'll still be able to run transactions. This shows you how rare Bitcoin is though. So Bitcoin per day mined right now is 900, give or take a little bit, but right around 900. So in 2024, in about 4 months, the Bitcoin halving happens, and then there'll be 450 new Bitcoin mined. Then 2028, 225, and time goes on, right? And you get half that, or you get half the supply after each halving, half the new supply. So nothing happens to the Bitcoin that's already been mined. Some people have that question, right? It's not like all the Bitcoin is halved. It's not like a share split or stock split or anything like that. It's just that there's half as much new Bitcoin that's being mined. So there's less hitting the Bitcoin miners, which means that they don't have to sell off as much to pay for expenses, staff, electricity, that kind of thing. I have another thought on that too, but we should hit on this. It just continues down and down and down. By 2060, we have less than one new Bitcoin mined each day by all the miners in the world. Now, some people are worried, like, what if this happens and Bitcoin's price just doesn't go up enough? Like, how is that going to work? People aren't going to mine Bitcoin if there's only one Bitcoin to be mined each day. I've had talks with people that are big into crypto and don't understand how that works even. The thing is, if it becomes unprofitable to mine, like if Bitcoin's price doesn't go up high enough to sustain miners will unplug, right? So they'll unplug their miners. There will be less difficulty. That's what they call it. Difficulty, basically the hash power of the network. All the miners together make the difficulty or the hash rate. There'll be less of that if some are unplugging, which means that the ones that remain will get more of that Bitcoin until it evens out. They should always be either profitable or right on the edge of profitable, because otherwise people will unplug, and then the miners that are left will get more Bitcoin and more Bitcoin and more Bitcoin. And then when it becomes profitable again, then more miners will plug in. So it naturally stays at kind of an equilibrium, a homeostasis. Now, after 2060, there's less than a Bitcoin mined every day by all the miners in the world. That is crazy to think about. Now, I want to show you a couple other columns here that are really interesting too. So the Bitcoin per year will be about 164,000 Bitcoin after this next halving. So still a lot of Bitcoin being mined. But as time goes on, and as more of the supply hits the market, it becomes harder and harder to mine new Bitcoin. I mean, in 2060, for example, there's going to be a very small amount of Bitcoin that's being mined every year still. So, I mean, 320 Bitcoin mined from every miner in the world in 1 year. Like I said, less than one a day. Let's move further down. All right, let's just uncover all of this. By 2096, there'll be less than one Bitcoin mined every year by every miner in the world. That's crazy. So we can look at this too. The supply of Bitcoin, the max supply is about 21 million, exactly 21 million. So let's look at the supply left. Right? There'll be about 7.3% of the Bitcoin left by the time the next Bitcoin halving happens. So keep that in mind, that 93% of the Bitcoin have hit the market over the last 14 years, since 2009, and Bitcoin's price has 30,000x, 40,000x. If you just go from $1 even, I mean, Bitcoin was cheaper than $1 at some points too, like under a penny. But even just from $1 to $42,000, it's 42,000x when most of the supply has hit the market. Now we only have 7.3% left to hit the market over the next 116 years. That's crazy. Now let's keep on moving down. By 2036, 13 years from now, there'll be less than 1% of the complete Bitcoin supply left. Less than 1%. People don't understand that. So by 13 years from now, there's barely going to be any new Bitcoin left to be mined for the rest of existence. Less than 1%. People will start losing Bitcoin faster than the Bitcoin mined. Like at some point in this range, a lot of Bitcoin's lost every year, right? Probably tens of thousands of Bitcoin are going to be lost each year because people send it to the wrong address. They lose control or lose their wallets, the seed phrase to their wallets. There's just a lot that's lost. So, I mean, we're talking about 10,000 Bitcoin being mined a year by 2040. I wouldn't be surprised if we're deflationary much sooner than that. But think about that. Like, there's essentially no new Bitcoin then because people are losing it faster than new supply is actually being sold. So it actually becomes deflationary at some point, which is just crazy to think about. And if you're worried about whether people will pay transaction fees, keep in mind there are large companies, there are large countries that are getting into crypto. They don't really care if they have to spend a couple $100, $1,000, a couple $1,000 on a transaction fee when they're moving around millions or tens of millions of dollars. It doesn't matter. It's just, it's barely anything. So when Qatar comes in, when Saudi Aramco, one of the world's most profitable companies, is looking at investing in digital assets, including Bitcoin, people will find ways to buy Bitcoin. Countries will find ways. People find ways. Big companies will find ways. And they don't care if they're really wealthy as much about the transaction fees. So when there's only so much space, so many transactions that will go through, they'll go put this as a high priority trade every single time. They'll put in $100 to have it done in just a short period of time. And then you'll get pushed back further and further down the line. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not worth buying Bitcoin. That's not what I'm trying to get at. What I'm saying is this will be extremely rare, right? This is not a chain to go and process 1 million transactions a day or a second or an hour, right? Bitcoin is not trying to do that. Some of the layer ones are where that will happen. Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, those types of layer ones, layer twos will be able to handle those transactions. But for Bitcoin, it's going to be really rare to be able to get your hands on Bitcoin down the road. Transaction fees are going to be high. Some people just literally won't be able to pay for a transaction fee. I mean, think about that. Think about that in 50 years. If you want to buy some Bitcoin and you want to actually hold it yourself, instead of buy it, what you'll probably have to do is buy it in a retirement account, buy the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, or the spot, whatever spot ETF you want, or you can go buy it on some app, right, and keep it in one of their wallets. But self-custody will be priced out for a lot of people because they won't be able to handle a $50 or $100 transaction fee on Bitcoin every single time they want to move it, unless you're really wealthy. So that's going to be a privilege for the rich in years and years from now. That's self-custody is going to be a privilege for the rich when you look at Bitcoin specifically. Other kinds of cryptocurrencies, it's going to be cheap, right? But Bitcoin, it's going to be difficult for a lot of people if they want to do that, if they want the self-sovereignty aspect of Bitcoin. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video, though. I hope that cleared up some questions that people have about what will happen in 2140. Also shows how rare Bitcoin is. Like, those numbers are just insane. We're talking about just a small fraction of the supply. I mean, look at this. We're going to have less than 1 Bitcoin to be mined for the last 30 years of Bitcoin mining. The last 30 years is all going to work to mine 1 Bitcoin. That is nuts. So again, let me know your thoughts underneath the video. Check out the links to Margex, to Blowfin. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Oh, let me throw this in there too. In case you want to know why I'm buying and selling, there's a link to Patreon underneath the video. I've been getting more people in there. I actually have something really exciting too that's going to be similar to Patreon, but a little bit different. I'm going to unveil that in the next few days, but be on the lookout for that. Also, like I said, you can just sign up for Patreon and you can get access to everything that I buy and sell and some extra videos from me. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.